In this video, we will focus on using some of the basic geometric construction tools that are available in Autocad. The design that we are going to create consists of straight line segments and two circles. Let us begin. First, let us change the options in the status toolbar. The status toolbar is located at the bottom of the Autocad main window. Each of the icons in the status toolbar can be used to assist us in creating our design. Let us turn all of the options off and switch on only the grid display option. The grid display provides us with a sense of distance. The default setting for the distance in between the two grid points is set to 0.5 units. We will first create the outline of the design using the line command. The line command is located in the draw toolbar in the ribbon toolbar area. Let us activate the command by clicking on the icon. Once the command is activated, notice a message is displayed in the command prompt area. AutoCAD indicates that we have activated the line command, and AutoCAD expects us to specify the first point location. With AutoCAD, there are several options to indicate positions. One option is to use the absolute coordinates input method. Type 0, 0 and hit the Enter key once. Notice that we can move the cursor around to see a rubber band line which has one endpoint attached to the origin of the world coordinate system. The first line we want to create is a horizontal line that is 5.5 units long. We can continue to use the absolute coordinates input method to indicate the position of the next endpoint for the line segment. Type 5.5, 0 and hit the Enter key, and notice AutoCAD creates a horizontal line that is exactly 5.5 units long. The horizontal line is very close to the bottom of the graphics window. AutoCAD provides us with several options to adjust the current display. One option is to use the display toolbar located at the right side of the graphics window. Move the cursor to the display toolbar area and click on the hand icon. This is the Autocad Pan command. The Pan command acts as if we are using a video camera, so use the left mouse button to drag the display upward. Now I can right mouse click and choose Exit. The right mouse button is used to bring up what is called the option list. The option list will display options that are applicable to the current situation. And notice that the line command resumes. The pan command we just used is part of the dynamic viewing option that is available in AutoCAD. Let's continue with our design. The next line I want to create is a vertical line that is 2.5 units long. Let us use the relative coordinates input method. First, use the @ symbol and enter 0, 2.5. This indicates that there is no increment in the x direction and 2.5 increment in the y direction. The next line we want to create is a horizontal line 2.5 units towards the last endpoint position. We can also use the snap option. Switch on the snap option in the status toolbar, the second icon in the status toolbar. Now move the cursor to x equals 8 and y equals 2.5 and click once with the left mouse button to create the horizontal line. Notice that we can mix the different input methods as we are creating the necessary line segments for our design. As you have seen for the 3 line segments we have created so far, we started with the absolute coordinates input method for the first line segment, and then we switched to using the relative coordinates input method for the second line segment, and the third line segment we use the interactive input method. For the next line segment, we will use the relative coordinates input method again. This time, we will use the relative polar coordinates input method. Type @3 angle 90 and hit the enter key once to create a vertical line. The relative polar coordinates input method requires the use of a distance and an angle. So the 3 we typed indicates a distance of 3 units, and the 90 we typed indicates an angle of 90 degrees measured from horizontal. For the next line segment, we will use the relative Cartesian coordinates input method. Type @(-1.5, 1) and hit the enter key once. The next line segment is a horizontal line towards the left. We will use the direct input method. The direct input method is a very fast way to create line segments. All you need to do is place the cursor in the direction you want and type in a distance. So move the cursor towards the left, type 6.5 and hit the enter key once, and AutoCAD will create a line that is exactly 6.5 units long. For the last segment, I can use any of the input methods that we have used to create the 6 line segments, or we can right mouse click once to bring up the option list and select Close. AutoCAD will then connect the last line segment back to the starting point of the series of line segments we just created. Notice this option also exits the line command. Next, we will create the 2 circles. Click on the triangle below the circle command and notice there are 6 different options available to create the circles. The default is set to center radius, which means that we will need to specify the center point location and the radius for the circle. The second option is center diameter. The third option is 2 point. The 2-point option requires us to specify 2 points that the circle will pass through. In effect, we are specifying the diameter of a circle. The 3-point option requires us to specify 3 points that the circle will pass through. The last 2 options are tangent, tangent, radius, and tangent, tangent, tangent. These 2 options allow us to create circles that are tangent to existing geometry. Let us use the center diameter option. For the first circle, we will specify the center point location using the absolute coordinates input method. Type in 2.5, 3 and hit the enter key once for the center point location. And if you move the cursor around, you will see the cursor position is used to identify the diameter of the circle. We can also type in the value. Type 2.5 and hit enter and a circle is created. We can create the second circle by clicking on the circle icon or using the right mouse click to bring up the option list and choose Repeat Circle. There is a slight difference between this option and clicking on the circle icon. In most cases, when the repeat option is used, AutoCAD will reset the command back to the default settings. So choosing Repeat Circle will not be using the center diameter option, but instead we will be using the center radius option. So we will still need to specify the center point location. Type @2.5, 2 and hit enter. Move the cursor around and you will notice we can specify the radius with the cursor position or type in a value. We can also use the right mouse button to bring up the option list and choose diameter. Type 1.5 and hit enter to create the circle. We have completed the guide plate design using the line command and the circle command. In this video, we will continue with the use of basic AutoCAD commands to create two-dimensional designs. AutoCAD provides us with several options to start a new drawing. One option is to go to the Application menu and choose New Drawing. By default, when we use the New Drawing option, AutoCAD will bring up a list of template files for us to choose. An AutoCAD template file is really an AutoCAD drawing file with some predefined settings. In the later chapters, we will go over how to create AutoCAD template files. For now, we will use the default acad.dwt template. The file name extension of DWT indicates this is an AutoCAD template file. Click OK to start a new drawing file using the default template. The first thing we should do in starting a new drawing is to confirm the unit is set correctly. In AutoCAD, there are several ways to reset the units. One option is to use the menu bar. To display the menu bar, go to the Quick Access menu at the top of the AutoCAD screen and click on the down arrow to display more options. Select the Show Menu Bar option, and this will display the AutoCAD menu bar above the ribbon toolbar area. The menu bar contains many pull-down menus that are organized by different categories. Similar functions are grouped into the same pull-down menu bar. We will select the Format menu bar and choose Units in the pull-down list. This will bring up the Drawing Units dialog box, which we can then adjust the properties related to the units of the current drawing. By default, the type of units for length is set to decimal and precision set to display 4 digits after the decimal point. It should be noticed that the precision setting is related to the display of the drawing. We are not setting the accuracy of the drawing itself. Let us set the length type to decimal and change the precision to showing 2 digits after the decimal point. Notice that we can set display of the length and angle to other types. There are 5 different angle types we can use. For this drawing, we will use the default decimal degrees. Click OK to accept the unit settings. Now looking at the default drawing area, it is quite large. It is over 55 inches by 22 inches. We can adjust the drawing area by using the Drawing Limits option. Go to Format menu bar and choose Drawing Limits in the pull-down list. AutoCAD now expects us to specify the lower left-hand corner and the upper right-hand corner of the drawing area we want to work with. We can consider this area as equivalent to defining the size of paper we want to use. By setting the drawing limits, we can limit the display of the grid points to within the specified area. It is important to realize that the CAD space is a virtual space. A drawing can be as big as we want it to be. This drawing area concept was first introduced in the 1970s to 1980s, when CAD systems were first developed. And at that time, CAD was primarily used as a replacement of pencil and paper. But today, we are using CAD systems more as a design tool, not just as a drafting tool. There are quite a few changes between the CAD systems we used back in the 70s to 80s and the CAD systems we use today. In the command prompt area, AutoCAD expects us to identify the position of the lower left-hand corner of our drawing area. The 2 numbers in the brackets are the default location, 0, 0. This is aligned to the origin of the world coordinate system. We will accept the default location, so hit the Enter key once to align the lower left-hand corner to the world origin. In the command prompt area, AutoCAD now wants us to identify the position of the upper right-hand corner of our drawing area. Notice the default location is x equals 12 and y equals 9. Hit the Enter key again to accept the default location. Now you will notice the display has not been adjusted, even though we have set the drawing limits. We will need to use one of the viewing functions to see the effect of the changes we have made. Go to the View menu bar and choose Zoom All in the pull-down list. The Zoom All option will rescale the display based on the created entities in this drawing. If no entities are created, it will reset to using the area defined by the drawing limits. Move the cursor near the upper right-hand corner of the screen and notice the display has been adjusted to match the area defined by the drawing limits command. In the previous drawing, the guide plate design, we have used the origin of the world coordinate system as the starting point. That approach is a very effective way in creating designs. There are other techniques we can use to create design. It is not really necessary to always start at the origin of the world coordinate system. For the spacer design, we will look at another technique which does not reference the origin of the world coordinate system. We will create the spacer in somewhat an arbitrary location on the screen. Before we begin to construct the design, we will first set up the spacing in between grid points. Move the cursor to the status toolbar on top of the snap icon. Right mouse click once to bring up the option menu and select Settings. In the Drafting Settings dialog box, we can set the spacing of the grid points and the snap option. Currently, the spacing of the grid points is set to 0.5. The grid display is turned on. We can also switch on the snap option by clicking on the checkbox on top. Notice the default snap distance is set to match the grid point display. Click OK to accept the settings. Notice the snap option is switched on as indicated in the status toolbar. We are now ready to create our design. Activate the line command by clicking on the icon. We will start at an arbitrary location. Move the cursor to the lower left side of the screen and click once to place the first endpoint of the line. We need a horizontal line that is 6 units long. Enter at 6, 0 and hit the Enter key once. AutoCAD has created a horizontal line that is exactly 6 units long. For the next point, we will go upward and create a vertical line, although we do not really need this line as part of the design. We will use this line as a construction line to help the construction of the design. Enter at 3, angle 90, and hit Enter once to create a vertical line. One advantage of using a CAD system is that we can create and delete entities relatively fast. Unlike the traditional board drafting, no dirt mark will be left behind when we delete items in a CAD system. Next, we will create a horizontal line towards the left. We will use the direct input method for this line segment. Move the cursor directly towards the left side of the last point and Enter 2 to create the horizontal line. For creating simple geometry such as lines, there are 5 different input options to allow us in creating line segments very quickly. Depends on the situations. One method might be faster than the other methods, so there is a little bit of decision here. For the next line segment, enter at 0.5 angle -90. This will create a line that is 0.5 units long and moving downward from the previous point. AutoCAD uses the standard engineering notation where counterclockwise is considered positive angle, while a negative angle indicates going clockwise. For the next line segment, enter at -2, 0. This will create a horizontal line towards the left side of the last point. We are using the relative input method to create lines. We can also use the interactive method to create the next line segment. Since the snap option is set to 0.5 units, we can also just move the cursor directly above the last point, one grid point above, and click once with the left mouse button to create the line segment. For the next line, move towards the left and align the cursor to the starting point and click once with the left mouse button to create the last line segment. Now right mouse click once to bring up the option menu and select Enter to exit the line command. We do have the extra line which we don't need for our drawing. Select Erase in the Modify toolbar area. Select the right vertical line with the left mouse button and click once with the right mouse button to accept the selection. Next, we will create 2 arcs. Click on the down arrow below the arc icon and notice the pull-down list shows quite a few options to create arcs. The first option is a 3-point, which means an arc is created by selecting 3 locations. The second option is start, center, end. An arc is created by specifying the starting point location, the center point location, and the end point location. Quite a few options to create arcs, and we will need to decide, based on the situation, which method is the most effective option to create the arc we want. For this design, we will use the center, start, end option. We will first create the arc on the right side. The center point is aligned to the two right endpoints of the lines. Move the cursor to the middle and click once with the left mouse button. Then move the cursor to the endpoint of the bottom horizontal line. We will use this endpoint as the starting point of the arc. With the snap option turned on, we can select the endpoint quite easily. Now move the cursor to the top of the endpoint of the upper horizontal line. Left mouse click once to select the endpoint as the endpoint of the arc. An arc is created which is aligned to the two lines on the right. We will simply repeat this process and create the other arc on the left. Select the center, start, end command in the draw toolbar. Place the center point aligned to the endpoints of the two horizontal lines. Select the top endpoint as the starting point and the bottom endpoint as the endpoint of the arc. Next, we will create two circles. Select the center diameter circle command. The two circles we want are concentric to the two arcs, so select the same center point location of the arc on the right. Enter 1.25 as the diameter of the circle. We will repeat the same procedure to the left side. Align the center point of the circle to the center of the arc and type in 1.25 as the diameter of the circle. We have completed the spacer design. In this video, we will go over the procedure to create exercise 1 of chapter 1. So let's look at this design. Looking at the dimensions of this design, it appears that 0.25 is the smallest increment we need. One technique we can use is to take advantage of using the snap and grid display options to help us create this design very quickly. Although it is possible to set up the snap and grid display increments to smaller increments, such as 0.1, the problem is, if you make the increments too small, it's actually more difficult to get the distance that we want. In this case, using the 0.25 increment is a good choice. My plan is to start from this upper left-hand corner of the design and will simply draw line segments by going all the way around to create this design. Let's first set up the units and also set up the spacing for the snap and grid display options. Go to Format, Units, and we'll set the precision to show 2 digits after the decimal point. Notice that this setting only adjusts the displayed coordinates located at the bottom of the screen. This setting does not affect the precision of the drawing. Next, we'll set up the snap and grid display options. Go to Tools, Drafting Settings, and we'll set the snap spacing to 0.25. And also set up the grid display spacing to 0.25 as well. And we can turn on both the grid display and the snap options by clicking on the checkboxes on the top. Click OK to exit the drafting settings command. In the status toolbar, turn off all the different options and only have the snap option and grid display option turned on. Now move the cursor around and we'll see the distance between the 2 points is exactly 0.25 inches. We can now begin to create our design. First, activate the line command. Let's select a point that's towards the left side of the screen as the starting point. The first line I need is a vertical line that's 1/2 inch below the first point. I could just count how many grid points to decide the distance, so 1 and 2. We have 0.5 inches. Left mouse click once to create the first line. So I can create line segments by counting the grid points. Move towards the right side, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75. Left mouse click again. Next line is 0.5 inches below the last point. For small distances, by setting up the snap increments correctly, this actually helps us to create this design very quickly. For the next line, I need a horizontal line that lines up with the first line segment. Click once with the left mouse button and create the line. Then I want to go down 0.25 inches. The next line I need is 3 inches, and I could use the other input methods, for example, using the relative input method. At 3 inches for x, 0, so 0 in the y direction, indicates we are creating a horizontal line that is exactly 3 inches long. The next line I need is a vertical line that is 1.5 inches long. I could use the direct input method. Move the cursor in the direction that I want it to go and type in the distance 1.5 and hit enter, and AutoCAD creates the line correctly. The next line I need is an inclined line, so I'm going to use the relative input method. So at x is to the left, so negative 0.75, comma, and y is half an inch, so 0.5, and hit enter. The next line is a horizontal line that is 1 inch long. We'll just use the direct input method. Type 1 inch and hit enter to create the line. The last line segment is an inclined line. I could just snap to the corner, or I could right mouse click and choose the close option. To complete the design, we need to create a circle that is measured relative to the lower right corner. We will first create an additional line to locate the center point location before creating the circle. Activate the line command by clicking on the icon. Attach the first endpoint to the lower right corner. Now we will use the relative coordinate input method for the second endpoint of the line. Enter at -1, 1 and hit the enter key once to create the line. Hit the spacebar once to end the line command. Activate the center diameter circle command. Select the top endpoint of the line we just created. This is the center point location for our circle. Enter 1 inch as the diameter value and create the circle. Now use the erase command and delete the extra line we have created to locate the center point. And we have created exercise 1 of chapter 1.